Welcome to the Declutter Diaries. I'm your host, Bonnie Hintonack with Bin Your Space. You'll meet Tina Wolf, a licensed therapist. We are going to explore the connection between your mental health and organizing and decluttering because it's a journey and we're on it too. First of all, I need to start off by saying that this weather has been absolutely gorgeous.
It is doing fabulous things for my mental health.
That's what I posted this morning in my story. Like, Moose and I took a stroll, and it's like, this weather is so good for my soul. Being outside, hearing the birds, seeing the sunshine, like, it's so good for me.
I made mention, I think in an earlier conversation that we had, that a lot of heavy stress right now, lots of things going on. And I really feel like the heat has weighed me down, whether it's because I've mentally processed, whether it's because I got a little bit of a dopamine hit because I got my house in order by doing my tidies.
10-second tidies?
Yeah, I have. I've done one every day this week.
Not to be confused with your tidy whities.
I don't wear tidy whities.
I think the cinnamon buns are hitting me.
Just so our listeners know, no tidy whities. This weather has been amazing. Opening my windows, having the air blowing through, the crispness of the mornings. There's been such a difference in my overall feel.
I agree with you. And it has been different for the dog, too. He has more energy, which
is not always a good thing.
I don't have first thing in the morning. He has zoomies and wants to play, and I'm like, I just need the coffee, please. But it has been really good in terms of like just something about that fresh air. Mm-hmm. I think that is also why I like having that clear space, because then the fresh air, everything just feels renewed, almost.
Clear, crisp, clean.
And today, in this episode, we're going to be talking about clean versus clear, because a lot of the times I hear clients that say this room or this area feels dirty when really it's cluttered. Now, there are spaces where it is dirty and cluttered. Mm-hmm. There's that.
That's a big difference, though.
Yes.
It's a different set of challenges, but they can also kind of mentally go together, because when a space is not clear, it's harder to clean. It's harder to want to spend time in that space doing things to sweep or dust or get the, what I call the dog hair tufts.
Oh, you have the tumbleweeds?
Yes, that's dog hair tumbleweeds
yes.
from the corners, because the laundry basket's there, this is there, that's there, and there's too much. It's easier just to close the door on it physically and emotionally.
And I think that in this world of organizing and mental health and those two things together, there's a big difference between decluttering and organizing. I was in an online group, the Social Squad Society, and they're amazing. I love them, with Emily and Shannon. One of the things is that they provide hashtags for you. There were hashtags for organizing, pantry organization, and home organization. And I was like, well, how about decluttering? Somebody else, they commented and said, well, aren't they the same thing? And I was like, they're very different. Because I feel like with decluttering, you have to see what you have, because you can't organize unless you declutter. Yes, they go together, but you have to be able to say, this is what I use. This is what I'm keeping. I need this. Now, again, you can find a use for anything. I just look at clients now and I was like, okay, tell me when you're going to need this.
You did that to Rick.
Oh, did I really?
Yes. You're like, when we were doing the kitchen, when was the last time you used this? I don't know, but I might. Well, that's great.
I've had clients where I'm like, okay, put it on your calendar. Like, I want to know when you're going to use this thing. Or like when people say, oh, I didn't know I had this. I'm like, but then do you need it right now?
Or ever.
Or ever.
Honestly, Bonnie, I don't think I've thought about the depths. And I'm going to kind of process this as this unfolds, because the difference between decluttering and organizing, and of course I'm sitting here thinking about physical space and relating it to brain space, and how when things are chaotic in your mind, or you have a lot going on mentally, you can't organize things, you can't function through it. So what is that? What does that look like comparatively, decluttering versus organizing from an emotional perspective?
I feel like in order to organize, you have to declutter. So you have to touch all of your items. You have to decide, Are you going to keep, donate, trash? And that's part of my process, because when I work with clients, you have to take everything out of your space. I think I said this in the last episode. Your space needs to be clear because you need to see all the things that you've packed in there. Because people will just open the drawer or cabinet and say, I need all of this, or I use it all. And that's not true.
So that is a defense mechanism.
Saying that I use all of this or need it?
Yes, it's you're deflecting. I don't have the mental capacity to deal with what's there, so I'm just going to say that I need it all because I'm not in an emotional headspace yet to be able to declutter it, whether that's because of emotional attachment to it, which we talked about in the last episode, whether it's because you're just not in a place of being ready, whether it's because it's overwhelming. You guide them through a process, and as an organizer, you have to take into consideration their emotional state when they're going through things, because you may see it as an object, but it might be their grandmother's whisk that she used
exactly
to make whipped topping for whatever when she was 6. I got goosebumps just thinking about that, because for me, that connection just came together. As I was decluttering my space, I didn't think about some of the emotional attachments I had to things.
Well, it goes back to that, would you call it a crock?
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Crock with the H.
Yes. And my emotional attachment is that it is personalized. It is difficult. I have clients that we get to a bookshelf that they have, and they have some of their mom or dad's knickknacks that have passed, or a picture of them. And it's not that I'm telling you to get rid of it. It's that we need to honor the item. Is this being honored, shoved on your bookcase, collecting dust? The answer is no. So then it's well, let's decide what you want to keep out. And then I've worked with clients where then I start a memory bin with them.
Or a space.
One of my virtual clients, she has a cabinet, and it's a glass cabinet, but it has mementos from her first husband who passed away, her second husband who passed away, her current husband's mom who just passed away, all these life events and things, but it's all in one space. So it's not scattered throughout the house
where it's easy to overlook and pass by.
Exactly. So
yet it's creating havoc.
It
everywhere.
Is. And you don't have to keep everything. You don't have to keep every single item from that person who passed.
I found a unique way for me to create that feeling of peace for me and recollection, and where I can go down my memory lane, so to speak. I take pictures of the item, and then I have an album on my phone, and I transfer it to my computer every once in a while, and I will pull it up, and then I'll put a caption on the picture. All right, guilty moment here. In my basement, I hid them from you.
Stop! The truth comes out. The decluttered confessionals.
I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. So I have a 100-year-old farmhouse that I live in. Down the basement steps, they're open underneath. There's this little cutout area where I have a utility tub and my sump pump area in the corner. And then hanging on the back part of the steps, I have my son's and my daughter's first pair of shoes.
Oh, that's sweet, though.
But why are they in the basement hanging on a nail on the backside of the steps? So I had found them, and I was like, I'm going to put them here because Bonnie will not see them. But you know where I originally found them? In my liquor cabinet, which is directly across from it on the back shelf.
Because that is an appropriate place.
But it used to be just a storage space where I had all kinds of stuff that didn't know what to do with. I have since taken a picture of both of them. I sat them side by side on a table. I wrote my daughter's name under and my son's name under, and I put the year that they were born, and I now have a picture of those shoes. So I don't have to keep them hanging on a nail in my
hidden
basement.
From your professional organizer friend.
Okay. Yes, confessional.
Declutter confessionals.
Right. So that's a great way, though, to declutter, but still give honor to those items and hold on to things that you connect with on an emotional level.
I did not take much of anything from when my mom passed. I saw this little, almost like a jewelry or like a ring dish, and it said, "Home is where your mom is." And I gave that to her a long time ago. When I saw the "Home is where your mom is," it was literally the night. When I saw this on the counter, it was the night that mom passed. And I remember thinking, I don't know how long this is going to stay here. What would Dad use it for? So I took a picture.
I love that you took a picture of it where it was.
Yes.
Ugh.
I am so glad I did it. First, I was like, I don't know if I want a picture. I don't know. Like, is this really important? But like looking back, it comes up in my phone every once in a while. It brings me back to that day, that memory. But if I was to bring that little jewelry, spoon rest holder, whatever it is, home, I wouldn't have a place for it. What would I do with it? And then what? It just sits in my memory bin? The picture is just as good, if not better, than having the actual item in your home.
That picture sounds like it's more beneficial for you than having the actual item, because there's a feeling that goes back to that moment when you recall taking that picture, where you were standing, what was going on, and that emotional connection between, I don't know how much longer this object is going to be here. I don't know how much longer she's going to be here. Being able to look at that image almost transports you emotionally back to that time and place.
I remember exactly where I was. I remember where she was. I mean, this was when, like, I know it was the night that she passed away. I don't remember if it was after. I mean, we were all there in the home surrounding her, and I remember her last breaths. Gosh, yeah, just like that picture, even just thinking about that picture brings tears to my eyes because it transports me back. And then us, like, around her as a family. We were all there, and we were like, it's okay to let go.
That is a powerful moment for you to recall. You know, we all have the family member or the circumstance or the situation that might bring us to a place of like, ooh, I don't want to remember that. So I want to declutter my mind and clear out that picture. But that one that you were able to capture brought you healing and joy and not pain, which is so important because the traumatic experiences are not the ones that we want to hold on to. They're not the ones that we want to clutter. You know, when we go through our parents' house when they pass, or when we choose to hold on to things in our space, they need to be things that bring us to a positive mindset so that it doesn't weigh us down.
This brings up for me also when my grandfather passed away in 2016, and he had this bar in the basement. I always was fascinated by it because it was like one of these like corner bars. If no one else wants that, I will take it because I just thought it was a really neat piece.
And you had a place for it.
So that's exactly what I was getting to. Stealing my thunder over here.
Yeah, well, you were just too slow.
Just sitting here, I can picture exactly where that bar was in their home. And there's some markings on the bottom because of when the basement flooded. You know, like it brings back some of these memories. And that is very specific. I had a specific place for that bar. I also have their grandfather clock. I guess it's a grandmother clock. It's a smaller one.
I don't know the difference. Can't help you there.
It chimes at the 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And that was something Ryan loves. He has taken it on to make sure it chimes. So then when I hear it chiming every 15 minutes, I do have to turn it off sometimes because I'm like, okay, I'm on a call. Like,
enough is enough.
I'm like, all right, hang on. Every 15 minutes, the chime gets longer. And then, you know, when you're sitting there at 11 a.m. and it's like, yeah, hold please. It's going to ding 11 times. But the sound of the clock brings me back to exactly where it was in their house. It brings back those memories. Thinking about this decluttering, organizing journey, it's not that you can't have sentimental items. It's the purpose behind. Can you actually have a place for it? Are you honoring the item? Or is it just something to look at where then taking a picture might be easier?
You just kind of opened up a whole thought process and memory for me. Here goes another difficult conversation. Wow, this episode's going to be full of teary eyes.
I know. I was not expecting that.
It's okay. It's
I
where
love
it takes
it.
us. So in my house, in the living room, my husband built this wall encased bookshelves over our French doors. We have 10-foot vaulted ceilings in the living room. So
beautiful.
It's huge and it's absolutely beautiful. And on it, for the longest period of time, was my husband's library of books. This was a place of pain for me every time I looked at them because of some circumstances that had happened. So they transformed me into a negative place, which brought up negative emotions, which sent me into a spiral, like we talked about in the last episode, of a cycle where I would get angry and I would harbor resentment and I would get upset and I could feel myself slipping into depression or getting angry over things that I'm like, this has been in the past. Leave it in the past. They were his books, but they brought me pain. I thought that maybe because they brought me pain that it did the same for him. So I went through this whole, can I get rid of these? Can I get rid of these? I think in dismissing his own emotions and connection to them, he was like, sure, if it means that much to you, just get rid of them. Because that's what husbands do, right? So here we're talking probably 200 or 300 books that were very important to him that I didn't realize how important they were to him. And I got rid of them all. And the bookshelves were empty. And through conversation with him, later on, I realized, almost a year and a half later, those books were a connection that he needed to hold on to that he wasn't ready to get rid of yet because he hadn't processed the trauma and the pain that had happened, that those books kind of reminded him of and brought him comfort in an odd way. I got rid of something that I needed to purge because I was ready to purge it, but it wasn't mine to purge. Even though it caused me pain, I could have dealt with that in a different way in order to allow the time and space, or even recognize that he needed those books for a little bit longer. And that was hard. When we're decluttering, we've got to realize and recognize that, particularly if we're married or even with our children, when you go through your kids' toys, I know that sounds so silly, but when you're purging kids' toys and they're like, no, mommy, I want that. And you're like, no, you haven't played with that in forever. A 4-year-old can have an emotional connection to something and not be able to verbalize it. So it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack, I feel like, there.
There really is.
Because I'm thinking about the books and then also the toys. Okay, now this makes total sense to why Rick is like, why is Bonnie in my house organizing?
Yes. Why he's got a little bit of trauma going on there because I did something before he was ready.
And I think that that's why it's important to bring your partner, family, husband, wife on board with the process. You have to do it almost together. One might not be ready for things, but it's the asking. Mm-hmm. So I will set up time. If I'm decluttering a space and there's things that are Ryan's and things that are mine that we brought together, I would be like, Ryan, when you have a minute, I would love to just pick your brain for a few minutes. Do you need this? Do you want this? Where do you want to put it? And I give him the option of what do you want to do with this?
I do that now, but I learned from a very hard process. And I hope that our listeners can learn from that and maybe be a little preemptive and having those hard conversations with their spouse before their children or roommates before they just go purging things and be like, yes, I'm going to declutter it all.
Right. Because it's not only your stuff, but it's also the safety net of where everything is and everything else.
How many times has Rick said, Christina, where is blank?
Check the feminine hygiene bin for the COVID test is all I have to say.
Just saying right now, I think there might be a thermometer, like I'm taking my temperature to see if I'm sick kind of thermometer.
What other kind of thermometer? Like a meat
thermometer or a candy thermometer or, come on, there's lots of different kind of thermometers.
But why would a meat thermometer be in your linen closet?
But I didn't finish the statement.
I'm sorry.
You assumed that I was talking about the closet,
now
which I am, but that's okay.
Now you got the dog up.
I know, right? No, so there is a thermometer in my
meat thermometer.
Facial. I don't even know what the label says. It's like facial care. Or anyway, there's a...
I think it's facial care.
But it fits because you put it in your mouth to take your temperature. So it's facial.
There are other things. Sorry. There are other things that... Never mind. I can't go there. I'm so distracted.
I had to make some light because...
Putting things in your mouth?
No, because that conversation was really heavy. So
it was
I had
really
to lighten
heavy.
It up a little bit.
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge of like how to deal with emotional attachments to belongings. And I think that this is something that we're going to come back to throughout our...
So when I did that, gosh, I'm going back to the heavy, and had the response from him, and I could feel, because he didn't verbalize his response, but I could feel it in the little statements he would make about getting rid of my things. And it was like, ooh, that hurt. That killed my drive to organize, to declutter, not organize, because there's a difference.
There is a difference.
To decluttering anything else for a period of time, because I was so sensitive to what I might then take from him. So it killed my motivation to do more, to organize more, to declutter more. It was about a 1.5-year pause after that before I could get back to what I really wanted to do and needed to do to declutter my space, because I was concerned about reopening a wound for him. So that we've got to be mindful of the things that we may need to pause on, or when we need to pause, or when we need to push through, because it can be really overwhelming too. Kind of on the other side of that, decluttering can be overwhelming, and you could just be like, nope, I'm going to shut the door on that and walk away from it, because it's hard. And knowing when to push through and when to check in with yourself emotionally to say, is this a good, healthy pushing through for me? Or do I need to pump the brakes a little bit and allow myself time and space to process either this thing that I'm getting rid of or the concept of decluttering as a whole?
I think right there, the concept of decluttering is what scares people the most, because of something like what you're describing with Rick. Somebody got rid of my things without my permission or without my involvement. I don't want that to happen again. So then the safe thing to do is that control of keeping everything is what is safe. But it's not safe forever, and it's not
mentally safe.
Yeah, it's not mentally safe, because then it's that carousel again of that cycle of, I'm going to keep this because it's safe and I can control this and I don't want anybody touching my stuff. This has happened to me before. I'm really glad you shared that story, because I know you're not the only one who's either done that or been on the receiving side of that, and that's hard. And that does stop people from decluttering and organizing, because then it's that mental trigger of, somebody's going to get rid of my stuff without my permission. I've heard that multiple times.
Well, and that lends itself to digging a little bit deeper into the aspect of control, because therapeutically, we often find that people hold on to things and latch on to things as a feeling of control. And that is often because they lacked control in areas of their life growing up, or they weren't able to make decisions because they had authoritative parents that dictated everything for them, or they were in a relationship with someone who had control over them. So the deeper we get into this, Bonnie, the more I realize that the connection between what you do and what I do has to be a conjoined effort, because you can't walk into someone's space not taking into consideration their mental health.
So what I hear you saying is,
we should be doing this together.
I just had like a moment in my mind. I don't have time
for that. I love you, but I don't have time
No,
for that
I know, but like, it reminds me of those episodes of Hoarders.
So I was actually getting to that.
Well, you weren't fast enough.
All right, back at you. Yeah, it's those people that when we see OCD and we see hoarders and we see people that hold on to things because they need control over their environment, over their things, it is a way of going back to those defense mechanisms, those protections. They can be a source of comfort to them, and by someone coming in like I did and stripping that away leaves you raw and vulnerable and kind of out there in a place that's really uncomfortable.
And it doesn't solve the problem because it comes right back. It's like debt. You can get a loan and just go, I feel like Debbie. Debbie would be so proud of me right now. I hope
Debbie?
My money coach.
Oh, yes.
I love her.
I was thinking Dave Ramsey because he always makes that comment. You just do it again. You do the HELOC to pay off the credit cards, and then you get a new credit card and run it back up again. Same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, because if you pay off the credit card, if you clear out a space without that processing through, and that is why I have clients touch their items. In my contract, I say I will not get rid of anything without their permission, because I don't want someone to come back at me and say, you got rid of all my stuff, because I'm not the one doing it. You can keep whatever you want. I will organize whatever you want to keep.
Do you realize that you are a therapist of a different type?
Ooh, tell me more!
I love this. So in my work with my clients, I am not the one that fixes things. They fix things. I can't fix you. I don't know you. I don't know your mind. My job is to be watching, learning, listening, feeling what you put off, and then to be a mirror so that you can see it.
That's so interesting.
You are doing the same thing.
Yep.
You are having your clients touch it, feel it, talk about it, think about it. Whereas with my clients, I do the same thing. In order to make change, there has to be reflection. Like you said, you can't go into a space. Well, you could.
You could.
You know, I could walk into a space and be like, you know what? Balls to the walls. We're throwing everything in a garbage bag and it's going out in the trash. So we could do that.
We could do that.
I could sit down in therapy and I could say, you need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. How is that helping?
I agree with you. And I know we got far away from our topic of clean and clear, but it has been so good to dissect this decluttering versus organizing, talking about honoring our sentimental items, and then also just like that need for control, and then how our actions when we help others in the decluttering and organizing process can affect other people around us, intentionally or unintentionally. So man, this has been a great conversation. In our next episode, though, we are digging deep. We're talking about gatekeeping. We're going to be digging into the question of where am I going to put this? And basically talking about mental freedom and clarity. I am so excited for that. We'll catch you soon, friends.
Bye.
Bye, friends.